What would people say about this life I choose? What would people say if I asked them to?
Welcome, everybody. You're listening to People Say, a podcast where I unpack the challenges of launching a career in a creative field. Joining me on the first ever episode is James Stelfox, the legendary bass player of the British rock band Starsailor. Since they formed in 2000, Starsailor has had 10 top 40 hits in the UK singles charts. Their debut LP, Love Is Here, went platinum in the UK. To date, they have sold 3.5 million records. They've opened for the likes of the Rolling Stones and the Killers and performed on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. James has also worked as a touring bassist for acts including Spiritualized and played bass on my debut album, People Say, which was produced by the legendary Danton Supple. Please welcome to the podcast the one and only Mr. James Stelfox. How's it going, man?
I'm going great, man. Are you?
I'm doing very well. Enjoying the nice weather in LA despite this little lockdown situation we've got going.
Yeah, crazy times, man. Crazy.
What's the situation like in the UK for you?
Well, we actually eased in lockdown this weekend that's coming up this Saturday. I think all bars, restaurants, hospitality reopens. So we're getting kind of back to some kind of normality, I think, but we don't know if this second wave's going to come or we're just kind of waiting to see what happens, really.
Yeah, I hear you. Are you in Manchester right now?
Yeah, just outside, yeah.
And to clarify, you're from Manchester originally, right?
Yeah, I was born in Warrington. It's great in Manchester, so 10, 15 minutes from Manchester.
That's great, yeah. So I would love to, if you don't mind, to start from the beginning and tell me a little bit about your childhood. You know, being born in Warrington, you know, was that a rough place to grow up? What was that like for you?
Warrington is kind of it's a working man's town, really. You know, it's a town. It's basically right in between Liverpool and Manchester. Where I live is like closer to the Manchester side, and that's why the intense rivalry is between the football teams of Manchester and Liverpool. If you're from Warrington, you're either one of them supporters, you see. But growing up, it was the primary school was lovely. You know, it was really a lovely time, and I've got great parents and a great family. But the secondary school I went to was a rough school, and you had to learn to defend yourself or stay out the way, really.
Which one were you? Defend or stay out the way?
Well, the first year, defend, and then after that, I got wise and stayed out the way.
Did you get into any bad fights where you got your face bloodied up?
Yeah, man. I used to get in quite a few fights when I was younger. It's kind of the norm. It's just what happened, really. So I learned to look after myself by doing karate and stuff like that, and taking martial arts lessons. But when there's 3 against 1, sometimes it doesn't matter what you learn.
Well, if I admit, the first time I ever met you, when you walked into the studio, I saw you and I thought, this guy is going to shank me in the face. And
no, I'm not. I'm peace and love, man. Definitely.
But now that I know you, and I know you're definitely a big teddy bear, I still think that you could shank someone in the face, and I'm just thankful that you're on my side.
Oh, man, I'd never do that. Look, you know, no, I'm as good as gold. I'm definitely chill, but my friends were the tough ones. I always hung out with a crowd who were tough. You know what I mean? So I'd make sure I knew the tough guys and they looked after me. So I was never the tough one, ever.
And was your household musical growing up? Did your parents play music?
They weren't musicians, but my dad was and still is a huge music fan. So I grew up with like Hendrix, a lot of Hendrix. My dad was kind of obsessed with Hendrix. That's what I called James, funnily enough. My mum would let him call me Jimmy. So the closest thing was James. So that's why I'm actually... And Led Zeppelin was huge, and the band Free, Beatles, the Stones, and just I had a great kind of rock upbringing from my dad, really.
And because your dad grew up, assumingly, with that generation of English music.
Well, exactly, yeah. And he passed it on to me, and I still have a lot of them records in my collection, and I still draw them now and again. Just, you know, put Led Zeppelin 4 on the other day, and it still sounds great to me.
So were you immediately, as a kid, drawn right to the bass, or had you end up picking that instrument?
Yeah, because I was a bit hyper as a kid. To calm me down, my father would take me in his car to try and get me to calm down or get me to sleep. And he always used to put me in the back, and he'd put his music on. And I always remember the band Free, Andy Fraser, his dad, he passed away unfortunately now, but phenomenal bass player. And I always remember he used to say to him, what's that? And it just always stuck out to me. And that was it. And then I think it was about 10 or 11, and my dad just bought me a bass because I kept going on about this sound.
And was that a nice bass looking back, or is that a piece of crap that you just like were lucky to learn on?
Oh no, man, it's like a $40 bass, you know what I mean? But it was my bass, you know, so I loved it. I absolutely loved it at the time. But to play, looking back, it was probably a hock of crap. You know what I mean?
A hawker. I like that term. You know, the English words are always still weird for me. People say weird stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
I have to think. No, it's all good. I have to think like twice about, okay, hawker, I must mean like pawn shop.
Exactly. Yeah.
And were other, you know, when you were growing up, were all of your friends, were they musicians too? Were they drawn to it like you, or you were kind of an odd man out in that scenario?
I think what when I went to secondary school, to kind of avoid getting into trouble and hanging around with the bad crowds, really, I befriended a few people. One's the drummer in Starsailor, but I knew him when we went to primary school together, but I was a year older than him. And so when we got to secondary school, like high school, we started to form a connection because he was the drums. So we just go into the music room, and I would be playing with Ben since I was probably 11 or 12.
Wow.
So
just you two as a rhythm section?
Yeah, me and him. And then there was a few other guys who played, and a couple of guys my year who played a little bit as well. So then we kind of formed a little band. We never gigged. I think we might have played at the school hall twice or something like that.
What was the name of that band?
Oh, God. Innocent Tears. Oh, God. Anyway, moving on.
Innocent Tears. I like it.
We thought we were the greatest band in the world when we were 13, 14. We really weren't.
So when you were playing at 13 and 14,
Yeah.
you thought you were the greatest band in the world. Were you thinking, we are going to be fucking rock stars? This is it.
I always, my plan was, because I remember going to see the I don't know if you have this in America, like a career advisor. Do you have that?
Yeah, some version of that for sure.
So basically, the career advisor came round. He said, "Listen, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a musician and get in a band and go to music college and make it in rock and roll." He goes, "Right, okay, but seriously, head for the army. I think you'd be good in the army." That's what he said. I was like, "The army?" I was like, "No chance am I going to the army." I did not fancy it. A few of my friends eventually went, but I was just like, "Nah, man." And I was always just fixed on, even when I was in class, I was just fixed on notes and combining notes together. I didn't really know that much about it at the time, but I was kind of, my obsession with music was well underway, and that's the only thing I could see myself doing. And for sure, I was not going to the army.
Well, I definitely understand that. Do you feel like a lot of people around you, aside from this guy you just mentioned, that a lot of people think it was strange or like foolish to want to venture onto a musical path?
Well, a lot of my friends, as I left school, they kind of just got jobs straight away. Not a lot of them went to college or secondary school. So when you're young, when you're 16, 17, if you've got £150 or say what $200 in your pocket at the end of the week, that's great because you know in England the culture is Friday, Saturday night you go to the pub, you spend your money. And as a musician, I didn't have any of that money. So they're like, "Get a job, man, get a job." I was just, "You should be getting a job." I was like, I'm going to stick with this. And at that point, we were good enough to get gigs, so my weekends started to be filled with gigs.
Wow, so you seem like you were pretty undeterred. You did not care about what anyone thought.
I'm always quite focused when I really want to do something, but really kind of can channel into it really well.
Interesting. So when you were growing up, was there a particular bass player? I know you mentioned the bassist of Free, but is there a hero you had that you were like, this guy is what I want to be?
The first one is the guy Andy Fraser from Free. He was, and I still listen to Free. His tone, I was just like, wow, I could never get that because I used to have this really bad, like I said, crappy bass. And he used to get this tone, I could never figure it out. And so that always amazed me, his tone. And then obviously I went on to people like Jaco Pastorius, the famous, probably the greatest innovator of the electric bass ever, I think. And then other people were like James Jameson, the Motown guy. He came a little bit later for me. And Paul McCartney was big on me when I went through a big Beatles phase. The Chili Peppers bass player, he was big for me as well when I was 16, 17, and everyone was learning to slap and pop and stuff, and he was kind of the easy kind of guy to learn kind of thing.
Well, were you influenced a lot? Because when you were growing up, you know, when I think of English rock bands of like the early 90s, which must have been, somewhere around your teenage years or childhood, like were you
Yeah.
influenced tons by the Manchester bands, Oasis, the Stone Roses?
This will sound strange, but all my friends, and I mean every single male friend and female friends that I had, were the Oasis and Blur and Happy Mondays, the Stone Roses, who they kind of finished quite early. But that influence in this area, in Manchester and the Northwest, it was absolutely inescapable. It was everywhere. In every household had them records, and, the style, the people, the fashion we're wearing. But I at that point, wasn't paying any attention to that because it didn't interest me.
What didn't interest you about it?
I don't know what it was. I think it was because I was getting into music. I was being a bit more of a muso at that point. So I'd be listening to more complicated things, I think. I'd be listening to like Sly and the Family Stone, trying to work out If You Want Me to Stay, or I'd be listening to even like the Soundgarden, like a couple of Soundgarden records and the Pearl Jam stuff. I'd be listening to that completely over the English stuff at that point.
So it sounds like you were pretty singularly focused on music this whole time. Everybody around you was distracted, even with Music of the Day coming out of Manchester. Obviously, for me, those bands are heroes of mine personally.
Yeah, I've grown to really like. I like what they did, But at the time, I was just somewhere else. That was all.
No, but it sounds like you always wanted to be a musician, like from the start, and you actually never really considered doing anything else. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, you look back, does that seem like a crazy thing? Like, are you like, I can't even believe that I did this? Or are you like, no, of course, this makes sense?
Well, I think what happened was because I was in a few bands all the way through. I was in a punk band from like Bolton, which was a really kind of rough and ready. As you can imagine, on a Friday night in Bolton, things could get weird. Especially in playing a little punk band. I was like 17, and the guys like they could get physical. They could get physical in the crowd. Yeah, and sometimes you're walking out thinking, right, I've got to get out of here. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I played in that many bands, but when I met James, the Starsailor singer, I kind of knew. I saw him sing, heard him sing first of all. I was just like, wow. And then I thought, who is this? And I went to see this guy who was singing in a rehearsal room in the music college I went to. And there was this kid who looked like $1 million. I was just like...
James looked like $1 million.
He looked phenomenal, yeah. He did. I thought, man, this guy is like, he looks amazing. And his voice, I was just like, I'd never heard live. And I'd been in bands with loads of singers, but I'd never heard a singer that good. So I introduced myself to him. I was just like, whoa, man. I said, because he was only 16. I think he was 16. I think I was like 19 or something. And I was like, and he was so shy. But when he sang, he was just like, he didn't need the mic. He was that loud. But when he was talking to him, he was like painfully shy. So I just got into him and just got to know him. We kind of developed a lifelong friendship now over love of like, he was just listening to like Jeff Buckley. I was listening to kind of Nick Drake. And then we really bought on Neil Young, came into it, and the Beatles, and we talked about everything and used to obsess over like the certain albums and, and that's what grew our friendship to what it is. And even still very strong today.
It's interesting you mention that because fortunately the last time I was in the UK, I actually wrote a song with James. And I remember thinking, sitting in the room with him, he was like, I have this idea for a chorus. And he starts singing it. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, his
your voice is unreal. And actually, I thought, unadulterated, in the room, no reverb, no microphone, just him singing was like almost even better than the records because
I get what you mean. Yeah, I do get what you mean because to see him in the flesh, it's still because I don't know how many shows we've played together at Starsailor now, but probably I wouldn't put a number on it. But even now, he doesn't sing a wrong note, and his voice he doesn't. It's maybe cracked once or twice when if we've done 10 shows in a row or something, his voice is tired. But apart from that, I've never known anyone to be that strong as a singer.
Yeah,
he's phenomenal. He blows me away, man. Even now, 25 years on or whatever it is, it really does.
Yeah, he's impressive. What music college did you guys go to?
We went to it's again in the Northwest. It was called Wigan and Lee Music College, and that's where I met James, and that's where I met Barry. But myself and Ben, we'd been through school together. We went there kind of together, and then met the other two.
So Ben's like your best friend from growing up.
Yeah, me and Ben I was his best man and stuff like that. I was godfather to his children and vice versa.
That's pretty crazy, man. Thinking about my best friend and being in a band with him, like, and having been in a band before, I was a solo artist. Bands are such a tricky business. Like, it's almost a really big risk on the friendship to be in a band because it just can go any way.
Yeah, we've definitely, because we've been together that long, and I probably spent more time with Ben than any other person in this world, I think. Even my wife and my kids, It just we've got a special, and I spoke to him today. We call each other every day.
So he's your best friend still?
Yeah, and we sometimes we argue about football, but properly argue where he hangs up and slams the phone down. Or I say I'm going to come round, I'm going to punch your face in. You know what I mean? but then next, I'll feel guilty, or he'll feel guilty, and we'll be speaking an hour after. Best friends, definitely.
That's awesome. And so when you went to the music college, right? What were your parents? Are they supporting you? They're like, go for it, man, or are they giving you some grief?
Yeah, when I was getting educational, when I was getting the education, so I'd come out with results. My mum and dad were like, "Yeah, you're at college. It's better than being on the dole. I don't know what you call that in America. The benefits. So it's better than because a lot of my friends came out of school with nothing and just went on straight onto benefits, man, at 16, 17, or they got themselves a really little crappy job. So I think my mum and dad were just pleased that I was in college. So they did support me definitely through college. Not, but as soon as I left college, they were like on my back about you need to get a job and blah, blah, blah.
So was there a time difference between leaving college and Starsailor having some pretty good success?
Well, I'd probably say, let me just think about this. I'd probably say, I think we left college, and then it was probably 3 years after we left college. I think there was definitely a period where there's myself, James the singer and the drummer, but we used to have like 2 guitar players, and James wouldn't play guitar, he'd just sing. And then eventually James wanted to sing and play guitar, so we got rid of the guitar players, and then we didn't get Barry until about a year and a half before we signed. So that was a turning point when we got Barry in, the keyboard player. He kind of turned the songs around from being like Britpop, Oasis in Blur type, Blue Tones-esque, Stone Roses-esque, to more of what we are now, or what we were back then.
So in that period, now you must have been like 22, somewhere around. Were there other people around you in your community or others judging that you're like, oh well, this guy's wasted his time being a musician?
I'm sure a lot of my relatives like probably thinking, oh, he's a bum, just he plays bass. What's that? You know what I mean? I'm sure I didn't really, because I was so focused, I didn't really care what people thought anyway. But there's definite times when even my mum used to say to me, like, you've got to get, this isn't working, get a job. But my dad was always like, listen, just carry on, man, just do what you're doing, and I listen to my dad, not my mum.
I don't know if you identify with this, but something that has always been challenging for me is that I feel like actually the worst kind of judgment is the silent judgment. So most people are not outwardly like, hey, dude, you're a bum. I think most people silently are passing a judgment like, how old are you, and you don't have a regular job, and you don't have a bi-weekly paycheck. Like, what are you thinking? Yeah, of
course. Yeah. Well, I had to get a job in the end because I had to, because it was where my dad works, actually, and I got fired.
What does your dad do?
He works at this big company called British Nuclear Fuels, and he was like an electrician on the site in there. So he got me a job in the office, and I just like, this ain't gonna work. and then I was saying to my dad, I hate it. I'm not doing it. And then the band started to make a little bit of noise in the Northwest. A few people were turning up to shows and stuff, and we're like, I just said, I've just got to ride this out. This next 6 months, I've just got to ride it out, and we're going to be okay. And we were.
Wow. Do you think you had a gut feeling and you just went with it? That's pretty ballsy, no?
Yeah, I think there's one period where because what we used to do, we used to rehearse every night. So we finished work, and James had a little job as well, and Ben was working, and Barry was working as well. He was teaching he was a funeral parlor. He used to play organs at funerals. So he's always been weird. But we'd be getting together 4 or 5 nights a week in a lockup in the little rehearsal room that we had. We used to live there basically. We sleep there sometimes, I just get up and go to work the next day, whatever. But there was a period where we wrote these songs, and it was like I can remember it because the sun was shining. It's quite kind of rare in where we are anyway. And And then it was like a golden era, golden time for me, because I knew with these songs that we would get signed. I just knew, and we did.
So was there a moment in that period like that you can remember where just like you were at your lowest? You're like, I don't know if this is going to work. Can you?
Yeah, I think we definitely all got a bit disillusioned, because we've been together since James was 16. I think he was 20 when we got signed. So it was 4 years there. There's some great times, obviously, but there's sometimes we're thinking, is this going to work? And I think James was thinking, maybe I should try and do something different. But I think because we trusted each other and we loved each other, I think we stuck together, and it felt right. We were at the end of the day, no matter what challenges, at that point, and still to this point, we're a gang. We always were a gang. We'd hang out together. We'd go to like the bars in Warrington together, or the nightclubs in Manchester or Warrington or whatever, and we were a gang, and I think deep down, I think we all knew that it would happen. But there definitely was challenging times, yeah.
And in those times, even at your lowest, you all just had the confidence, the faith that it was just going to work out for some bizarre reason.
Yeah, because you're cocky, aren't you, at that age? I think if I was my age now and I didn't have a job and we were trying to get signed, I'd be like, uh-oh, this may be the wrong move, But when you're 23 and you're cocky and you look great, you feel great, you're like, yeah, we can do this.
Well, obviously it worked out for you guys. Well,
yeah,
so on the opposite of that question, was there a moment where you were like, wow, this is the moment where like something happened and it just set your life on a different course? Was it when you got signed, or was there a specific show you played where you saw the look on the audience's face and you just knew that this was going to work out?
I think what happened was we were doing a few shows in Manchester, then we went to do one show in London, and a guy from The Enemy, I don't know if you remember this magazine, The Enemy, in England. So they wrote a review, and we were unsigned at this point. And he wrote this really great review, and we were like, wow, we're in The Enemy the week after or whatever, the month after. And oh, yes, boys, we've made it. Because we thought, that's it, a little bit in The Enemy. The Enemy was huge back then. He used to make or break bands in England. I don't know if it even exists anymore, but we were like, wow, this is amazing. And then we came back to Manchester, and we did a show in Manchester, and it was like called the Night and Day Cafe. It was like a really cool, it's still there now, it's a really cool venue. Like only fits like 100 people and something. It's this like grotty cool little club in the centre of Manchester, and we played there, and we sold it out, and we were like, just by word of mouth, and we knew then. We knew we were going to get signed then. And
That's
then
amazing.
I think we got signed literally a month after that, probably.
Wow. That is crazy.
But, yeah, and there was amazing, because there was a bidding war for us back when record companies used to have money to give to young bands,
That must have made you feel amazing.
Yeah, and we could, I think we signed for, the publishing deal we signed for was for £1 million. So we were like, whoa, told you, Mum. Told you, Mum.
Told you, Mom. Well, that must, did you feel when you first got
I felt rich. Because I had no money for all, my life, really, My mum and dad were great with it, and they gave me what I needed and stuff, and by no means were we like poor, as in poor, but soon all of a sudden we had money, we didn't have anything to worry about, it was great.
That's amazing. So when that happened, did you feel like, all right, I'm all in, like it's over now, like I quit my job? That's I'd quit the job anyway at that point, because I think I was fired from the job, to be fair, but yeah, so that was it. I was all in, and then the management kind of they were like, we got the management involved, and they were just saying, yeah, it's just going to be a matter of time, and then that's it. You're on your way. Now make a great record, and that was kind of it. We did loads of gigs. And that first record was Love Is Here.
Yeah.
And what's the deal with that record? Where was that made? Who produced it?
That was made in an amazing studio in Wales, in Monmouth, called Rockfield. It's still there now, actually. It's where Queen recorded Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, amazing.
So that room, that famous track, is recorded in the room that we did our debut out. And loads of the great records, Robert Plant worked there, and loads of bands. And I think the Stone Roses, I think Oasis came through there maybe, and blah, blah, blah. Every band at one point went. Anyway, we holed up there for 8 weeks, and a guy called Steve Osborne, who had done at that point New Order and things like that. Our A&R guy suggested him, and it kind of worked out, because, well, they sold us a lot of records. And
then it went platinum, and then you guys partied your face off, I'm sure.
we were like, James was 20, 21 at the time. I was 24. Ben was 23, 24. And we had money in the bank for the first time. All of us, our own money in the bank. And we were touring the world. And, that first album, we toured for 2 years, I think. Enough back to back. I don't think I came home in that first year for more than more than 3 weeks in the whole year.
Was that tough? Your first to tour that long? I don't know if you were. Were you dating your wife, your current wife, at that time?
No, we knew each other. We'd known each other for a long time, but we weren't actually dating then. So it was even better. You know what I mean?
So you were single.
Yeah, we were all single. We were all city and ready to mingle. Yeah, it's just an amazing time because the best thing about our band, and I know it's cheesy to say, but we all were great friends. And we were going together with, different parts of the you're used to LA, but the first time we went to LA, we were like, oh my God, this is just the best.
Where do you play in LA?
Where do we play the first time? I think the first time we played would have been the Troubadour, maybe.
Great venue.
And then,
a lot of
then
memories
Then we played the Wilton, and then we played El Rey, loads of places.
Those are all great venues.
Yeah, and it was just amazing. And we were there in LA for ages on the first bit because we did loads of promo and we'd be doing little shows, and it was just great. In Warrington or Manchester, or, Liverpool area, you don't get to on a Monday afternoon sit by a pool and swig a few beers and smoke some fags and hang out with your friends and then go and play a show. You know what I mean? It's so it was.
Sounds like a dream.
It was everything. Especially, I tell you what, the first time we went to America, I know we didn't like, as you say, crack America, but we toured America so much, but we just didn't have that radio song, I think, that connected, in the States, which is unfortunate. But we toured there so many times. But the first time that we went there, it blew my mind. When I went to New York, I was just like, because the English grow up on American TV shows, and it's in your house every Friday and Saturday night. These great American TV shows, and suddenly you're in New York or you're in LA, and you're like, whoa, and you're getting the suntan, you're young, and you're in good shape, and the girls are like, oh, you're from England? You're like, yes, I am. And wow, it's great. I had a great time.
You from England? Yes, I am. I like that. How often did you use that line?
Every different bar I went to.
Just so you all know, I'm from England.
Yeah. Yes. And so is he. It was a great, honest to God, man. It was like, we were single, we were young, and we were just having the best time of our lives, man. It was just phenomenal.
Would you say, like, when you were doing that, you thought in your head, I've reached my dreams, like, I've done it?
Yeah, but I wasn't satisfied then. I was like, I was in the moment, but I also thought, I don't want this moment to end. And it's not, because what's it, 20 years this year, is it? Or 20 years next year for the Love Is Here album.
Wow.
So I've been doing it professionally for 20 years now, and 25 as a band, 24 as a band. So, we were always kind of motivated.
Yeah, I talked about this with Danton Supple, who I know produced a record for you guys as well as my debut record. We'll talk about that in a second. But Danton had said, actually, he mentioned Starsailor, and he talked about, the bands he produced, Starsailor, Coldplay, the ones that really went on to do something.
Yeah.
The common thread between all of them is just that they were willing to work hard. And I think as a musician, one of the things I've noticed is that people often look at my job or your job and they'll be like, oh, life's a party. So you just, play music and get hammered and talk to girls and sounds great. And I think people miss that, like, well, no, you're actually playing music and working on your craft for hours a day, just like anyone would be doing any kind of job.
Oh man, yeah, I still practice. A lot of my friends who I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends, you see, and we still drink in the same pub. And they say, oh, what have you done today? If I've been off, like, what have you done today? Been messing about with your guitar? Like, they just seem to think I'm on some kind of gentleman's jolly, But,
a gentleman's jolly, I like that.
Yeah. So, but I played for 2.5, 3 hours today, going over modes and going over to some melodic minors and over G7 chords. You know what I mean? With flat nines and stuff like that. That's what I've done today.
Would you say that's a ritual for you? You spend hours every day practicing. Is there a particular time? Do you get up and you like just immediately get practicing?
I get up and I've got to get fitness really heavily into fitness. So get up really early, 7 o'clock, do an hour fitness, have breakfast. And because I'm homeschooling my son at the minute because there's lockdown. So me and him do to about 12 o'clock. Then from about 1 till 3 or 1 till half 3, I play my bass.
Wow.
That's kind of my day. I'm in lockdown anyway, but I always practice. I'm always practicing when we're not in lockdown, even on the road. Hopefully
Really?
you and I will get to tour together at some point. Then you'll see in the day, I always put, even if I'm on the road, I'll put an hour by that day to play, to practice. I think you just got to, because that's what we do. That's what we're paid to do, and it's a privilege to do it. But you've got to be good at it.
You're preaching to the choir. Actually,
yeah. Well, I know how hard you work because I've seen you work. So
yeah. I mean, I think as you mentioned, I consider myself incredibly lucky to be able to make music. I still every day I'm like, whoa, I can't believe that. I don't even think that I've achieved the success I'd like to achieve, and even still, I wake up and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I'm going to spend this entire day making music.
Well,
that's crazy.
What's exciting for you, Ben, is you are on the start of your journey, aren't you?
Yeah, for sure.
And you've made this record, which it's just it's a phenomenal debut record, man. There's no denying that. So I hope the success comes your way, which you thoroughly deserve. Because I know as well, it's not just about looking right and having the right songs, but it's also, like you say, it's about the hard work. And you look at bands like Coldplay. Chris Martin is a workaholic. He works that band massively. You know what I mean? I think he was to the other guys like Wylen, a guy, he'd be like, yeah, that'll do. But I think you have to have that motivation, that an obsessive drive. I think it is. I think if it's in you.
You came up with Coldplay, right? Like you guys were contemporaries.
Yeah, they were a little bit before us. I think their debut album was the year before us, but we ended up becoming quite friendly with Coldplay because we were doing the festivals at the same time as them, and when they were in America, we go to their shows, or if they had a day off, they come to our shows, and we used to hang out. They're cool people. They're really I know a lot of people seem to give them a lot of abuse. I don't get why, to be honest, because I think they're a great band, and look what they've achieved, for God's sake. But they're great people. They really are good people.
Well, that's nice to hear. It's always encouraging. I think one of the things that's important to me is, if you are lucky enough to crack it in the way that Coldplay has, it's nice to hear that those people are nice and not.
Oh, they're cool, man. Yeah, every one of it. I know Chris is he's kind of crazy and he's kind of skittish, but he's a decent chap. You know what I mean? And they all are. I can't say one bad word against any of them, to be fair. I like them all.
I'd love to dig in a bit to my personal favorite Starsailor record, which is Silence is Easy.
Okay.
Especially because, Danton Supple produced that record. He's also produced my debut album. I'm curious what that experience was like. I know Phil Spector was a bit involved in that. I've heard some stories.
Yeah. Silence is Easy was, as you call, sophomore record. So Love Is Here, we came off really phenomenal success off Love Is Here. The record company were like, wow, you can do whatever you want on the second record, just make some hits again. So we started to feel the pressure a bit, because on the first album we already had the songs like Good Souls, Love Is Here and Fever. We'd already had them songs, so we didn't feel pressure. But as soon as the success of the first one, they were like, right, get back in the studio, we need some hits. And we didn't have a lot of material, if I'm honest. And that's when we started. And then the legendary Phil Spector, who did John Lennon and he did Let It Be, Beatles, and he put the strings on that. And he worked with some amazing. He's a legend, isn't he, Phil? What happened to him, obviously, is tragic and terrible. But so he approached us, and we ended up working with him for the first month on Silence is Easy. Yeah, that was a crazy time. And then, obviously, we had to get rid of Phil because it wasn't working out, and that's when Danton stepped up to the plate.
And was Danton working with you because Phil? I'm not sure if people listening, but he was like convicted of murder, or he went to jail for.
Oh, he's in for murder. Yeah.
Jeez. So and this happened during the making of this album.
This happened, yeah. The weirdest thing. So what happened was we became friendly with Phil through his daughter, Nicole, who used to come to our shows. And long story short, Phil said, I'm going to produce your next record in England, in Abbey Road. And we were like, whoa. We were like, yes, okay. But we didn't really have any songs. So anyway, Phil came over, and we had the song Silence is Easy, which we thought was good. We had a couple of other bits. Anyway, we started working with Phil. It was going great. And Danton was the engineer. Danton was the first engineer on the session. That's when I first met Danton. And anyway, the whole thing with Phil was getting weird, and Phil was kind of breaking down a bit, and the session was going really bad. It was costing thousands of pounds a day. I don't know what, but the record company started to say, listen, guys, you need to get rid of him. I think, actually, we decided to get rid of him. But the record company said, you need to start making a record because you're racking up a huge bill. That's when I said, I think we can record. I think Danton can produce this. He knows how we work. He knows how we're a hard worker. He's a hard worker. He's a great engineer. And that's what happened. So Danton ended up producing the 90% of that record.
Was that his first production credit?
I've got to say that's got to be his first production, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you basically...
So after that, he went on
set Danton on a crazy course.
Well, of course, yeah. He owes me a lot, actually. So I'll give him a call and say, that Coldplay album... That Coldplay album that sold 78 million, you owe me some of that.
I'm going to mention that to Danton when I speak to him and say, Stel, I was talking to Stel and you owe him your house because, if not for him, you'd be broke loser.
Yeah, but to be fair, again, it comes down to that work ethic. Danton is work, he was first in the studio, and even if you finished at 2 a.m, he'd be first in the studio straight away. And his work, Danton was always going to succeed because he's such a great guy, as you know him. And also, he's phenomenal what he does. And after we worked on our record, he did the really big Coldplay album. I can't remember what it was called.
X and Y. I think it was called X and Y.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Fix You. Speed of Sound. Great record.
And that was Danton. He ended up producing that record and done great. And credit to him because he's phenomenal what he does.
Yeah, it's impressive. I loved Silence is Easy. Actually, when we were making our record, Starsailor played at the O2.
Oh, yeah. In London, yeah.
I can't remember the exact... I know that Bush Hill.
Shepherd's Bush
Empire. And you had invited me to the show, and you guys were doing like a 10-year, 20-year anniversary of Silence is Easy, something like that?
Yeah, 15-year anniversary. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and you had the strings on the stage, and you played the whole record. And since then, I've that record's amazing for me because I get to have the live experience. Obviously, I know you and James personally, so that's lovely. But yeah, what an amazing record, man. I think that's legendary. For me, it's a legendary album. I remember even when I was deciding to make my album with Danton, I obviously put together a playlist of all the productions he had made. And I remember hearing Four to the Floor, and I was like, all right, this guy knows how to make hits.
Yeah, and the Four to the Floor was huge for us in Europe and in Australia. And we had number one single in France for like 6 weeks or something mad.
Amazing.
So Danton, he really knew what he was doing, and obviously you got to work with him. You got to see how hard. It seems this conversation coming back to work ethic, and I think Danton, you got to see how hard he does work.
I definitely, I've noticed that even too as an onlooker, the people that I look at, that I see as producers, engineers, songwriters, touring musicians that are famous that people would know.
Yeah,
they work harder than anybody. Like people look at a guy like Ed Sheeran, and I'm like, I know for a fact from interactions with people in his circle that he's the hardest working guy that there is.
Oh, of course he is. Yeah. You don't get there with being lazy or being, I'm not doing that. I can't be bothered doing that. He puts the work in, man, 100%.
Yeah. Well, so I want to ask a question, just shift gears for a minute. You obviously have a wife and children. Yeah. And
well, actually, not. She'll kill me for saying this, but we've been together for forever, but we're not actually married. So,
well, you have a life domestic partner who you spent your life with and have children with and a family. Yeah. And so, for all intents and purposes, she's essentially your lifelong partner.
We will marry one day.
That must be. I'm curious to know how you balance that because obviously you tour a tremendous amount still with Starsailor, with Spiritualized. That must be a challenge as a creative. One of the things to do an incredible job to live this crazy life. There's also another person for most people that they have to share that with or have to figure out these kids with
100%
to know about that.
Yeah, well, because especially the last 7 years, I've been with Spiritualized, who are just my favorite band in the world. I shouldn't say this, but to play with these amazing musicians and they're just phenomenal people. But they tour a lot. When they do an album cycle, they tour a lot in America, quite a lot in America, a lot in Europe and Asia. So I'm away quite a lot. And last year was an example of that. I was away with Starsailor and I was away with Spiritualized. I was probably away for near enough 11 months of the 12, I think, last year.
Wow.
So for my partner, Jill, and the kids, it's definitely a stress on them, And Jill works she's a graphic designer as well. So I've got 3 kids and she works and I'm away. It's tricky, It really is.
And how do you? What do you, is there something that you? Is there a ritual you guys have, or something you do to keep things afloat? If that's not too personal of a question for you to answer.
But no, not at all. I think what do you mean, as in the relationship, or as in?
Well, both. I think I imagine it's probably tough on your kids and her. I have a girl. I have a girlfriend. When I go on tour, almost every time I end up getting a great song because we have some moment where she just like has a really challenging time and becomes like a really emotional conversation that we end up having about like life and our situation. And I feel like most musicians have to be experiencing that because it's just such a strange life.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of relationships with people in bands end up kind of failing, really, is because, I think what I've got with Jill is complete trust, and love. So I know I'm going to come back home. The kids are going to be great. And technology helps now because you can Skype. So you can see each other. I can be in LA and I can ring them up and they're going to bed and I'm just getting up. But you can still, so it does help the Skype. But, I think you've got to have a really amazing woman who's in it with you.
So now, Jill, if you're listening, you should give him a lot of credit for mentioning how amazing of a woman you are.
Yeah, she should.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear, man. That's inspiring.
Yeah.
I think a lot of young musicians, stuff we think about often, we don't have the decades of experience. We're looking forward at our journey and seeing, oh, wow, like I have a woman that I love. Like I'd love to have a family with her, but that seems pretty dicey. So it's always really inspiring to hear, of people who are, mentors to say that they've had a successful,
you can
marriage, success as a father. That means a lot to hear. So it's nice.
And I tell you what, in the lockdown, because I don't think I've ever spent, in the last 20 years, I've never spent 3 months at home at one given time. So it's been amazing. And I know how strong we are as a family because just in this lockdown, I've had just such I know it's a terrible time what's going on, but I've had such an amazing family time.
Yeah, I'm sure. I hope I get to come back to the UK and we get to,
tour together.
Them. Yeah, I'd love to meet them. I also, I hope on my next record you can put some bass parts down. That'd be amazing.
Oh, of course, man. You just took me up.
Yeah, I'd love to chat a bit about People Say, my debut album, and meeting you. I remember you came into the studio, State of the Ark in Richmond. Again, as I said in the beginning of this podcast, I thought that you could easily, shank me in the face. You were playing
a handsome rogue. He's saying I'm a handsome rogue.
I saw you walk in. I immediately drew wood.
but I on that session where the People Say session, I was on tour at that point with Spiritualized. I just came back from Germany, and then I had about 3 days where I could do it, and I was off on tour with Starsailor. Do you remember?
Yeah, I felt really lucky because obviously I think you put down amazing bass parts on the album, so lucky me.
Oh, thanks, man. But I remember I got the call from Danson because I keep in touch with Danson, but we're not in touch every. I probably speak to him once a year, maybe twice a year, whatever. And then he called me and said, "Listen, there's this guy. I'm getting a band together with Jupp from Elbow, the drummer, who is a great drummer.
Great.
And he said, I'd love to get you on bass." I said, right, okay, man, just cool. And he's wrote some songs with Ed Harcourt, who I love. I've known Ed for a long time. I thought, this is like a great little band. So I said, send me some songs. I remember I got the hold of the songs. I hadn't spoke to you at this point, but because I was away on tour. And I listened to them and I just thought, wow, and they were demos. And I thought, Jesus Christ, these are strong, really strong. There's no production in this yet. And I just knew this because I've been offered to play bass on other albums, and I've gone, yeah, I'll let this. I always listen to it before, and sometimes I've just gone, I'm not going to name names, but I've gone, yeah, man, this isn't for me, really. I'm not putting my name to this. But when I heard that, I was just like, I knew we were going to make a good record, and we did. We made a great record.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, man. I think you were a huge part of it for sure. And I remember sitting and breaking down the first day, sitting in the live room, me playing on the piano, you playing the songs, and just breaking them down. And I think one of the things as a musician that's like the most empowering is when I'm playing a song and you're like, oh, well, that's a great change. And it's like, oh, nice. Like another musician thinks this is awesome. It's good to have, what's the word? It's good to have justification of what you're doing, you know what I mean? Because, I don't know. It's when you play, so you want to impress, don't you? You want it to be great, but you also kind of, there's a little element of like, I want to impress these with this. I think. I was always I was really lucky to have an amazing rhythm section. I think that the record, one of the things that was really important to me was making a record that felt amazing. If that
Yeah,
felt that could feel like all the great records that came before it. They're
yeah,
not on the click. They're just like the band just feels good, and I think
yeah, and what, did we do it in 2 days? I think I did it in a day and a half, maybe. So
yeah, I think we did your bass parts in like 2 days.
yeah, so but the songs, that was with you were great in the studio because you were, I could have played a lot more notes, could all that kind of thing. But you were like, listen, I want it like this, and I like in the studio to have someone who kind of, because if you're off on your own, sometimes you can overplay. But so I've someone in the studio who says, listen, man, what you're doing there is cool, but play this, try that. I was like, I knew I was in a good creative zone with you and Danson at the helm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I just take it from John Lennon, who just tell musicians to play as few notes as possible.
Yeah,
it's not about the one. It's even like I'm a solo artist, so theoretically, like my piano or my guitar or my voice should be like the thing that people hear the most. Even those things, I'm trying to fit into a band so that where all the instruments can like come together to make something great, rather than one instrument doing something amazing. But who cares?
Yeah, I get
about
you.
the song.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very grateful that you played, and I'm grateful to be friends.
I'm great. I'm honoured you asked me, man. And I play this record. I know it's a weird time at the minute, but trying to get this record out to as many people as possible. I play it to everyone I meet. I'm like, get on this, and no one's ever come back to me and said, "Nah, man, I don't like that." Everyone's come back and gone, "Oh, this sounds great, man. Who's this guy?"
Hell yeah! Well, I can't wait to get out on tour, man. I hope to do that soon, and we'll see what happens. But I'd like to ask a few more questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you're a busy guy needing to play some bass and hang out with your kids.
Yeah, I'm done for bass today. The only thing is the kids. I put them in bed and that's it. I'm done.
Just a couple quick last questions. No thought to it. Who was the biggest impact on your life and career? It doesn't need to be a musician per se, but the first person that comes to your head.
My dad.
Wow.
Or the person I knew I would be successful when I met them. I knew I'd do all right anyway, but when I met James, I thought, this is where we need to go.
So James and your dad, I like it.
Yeah.
What inspires you now?
Jason from Spiritualized, I think he's phenomenal. I've been lucky now, I've done 2 records with him, and they're so well revered by musicians around the world. Like it's just great, and he's a crazy genius, but he's I love it. Yeah.
If you could change anything from your career, like all the stuff we discussed, if there's one thing you could change, would you?
Okay. Yeah. The 3rd album, I think we lost our vision where we were going, and I think maybe especially from my point of view, and I'd say the drummers, we were partying too much and we didn't commit ourselves to as much as we should have done a better record.
Well, it didn't seem to harm you too much, but I think no. You guys sound great. It's always interesting to hear how people view themselves versus what the public thinks. Yeah. What about the future? What do you see for yourself?
Just to keep doing what I'm doing, I think. I've always said to Jill's always said to me, when you think you'll hang up your boots, as they say in England, and when I'm not healthy enough to tour, I think, because I'd always love to play. Be it if I play him in packed out gigs or in arenas or in a bar in front of 100 people or 1,000 people, I'm happy just to play.
That's inspiring. It's inspiring to hear with all of your success that just playing in general, even if it's for 25 people, still excites you.
Oh yeah, they're the most nerve-wracking ones, I think.
Really?
When you're playing, yeah, I just did just before the lockdown. We played like 4,500 capacity shows, and it was like it's easy. I think it's like because you're getting the zone, it's easy. But if you're in a little like bar and there's like 100 people there, it's much more intimidating, I think, than being on a big stage. And I think most artists will say that.
Wow. That's interesting. I don't have that experience at all, but maybe it'll change if I'm playing stadiums.
You'll get there.
Great.
The lockdown. I'm ready to get out playing as soon as this is over.
Well, I hope you get an opportunity to do this. I super appreciate you taking the time, man. It's inspiring even for me. A lot of this stuff is new and inspiring. It's always a pleasure to chat and to connect because
it's great to speak to you.
You are the man, dude.
Listen, Ben, you're a top man yourself, so you keep safe out there.
Thank you, my friend. I'll catch you soon.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.
You've just listened to the first episode of my podcast, People Say. Thanks for tuning in, and look out for more episodes soon.
People talk so much, you gotta let it so